Hi, I'm here with Chris Donaldson, the Executive Chair of TinOne. And today, Chris was up presenting to a packed audience of interested investors learning about critical metals. So Chris, I'm just going to get you to give a framework of the company, like the ticker symbol, where people can find you,
Sure.
market cap.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here, and obviously a great event today. It was certainly packed, and people are gravitating to the critical minerals sector. TinOne, relatively new company. We trade on the TSX, venture under symbol TORC, also on the OTC QB in the States as well. So relatively new company. We've got a bunch of projects down in Tasmania, Australia that we're advancing, primarily on the tin side, as the name suggests, but we've had an interesting kind of twist in the last couple of months where we've made a bit of a lithium discovery as well.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So how does tin fit into the critical metals space? And how does it slot in there?
Yeah, so I mean, we got into this game because we read a report from MIT that was put out 5 years ago. Rio Tinto was actually putting out and promoting it quite a bit, that indicated that tin was going to be the most impacted metal with electrification. So that was 5 years ago. Nobody cared about tin 5 years ago. So we picked up these assets, staked them, and acquired them, and held them until the market started to advance in the tin space, which happened about three years ago. Yeah, we're putting forward right now. I mean, tin, of course, you know, it's the glue that holds batteries together, that holds semiconductors together. The primary use, over half of it, is for solder, right? So it's every electrical component has some kind of tin use.
What's the supply-demand balance right now of tin?
Yeah, you know, most people don't follow the tin market, but I can equate it to what's happening in the copper market. And the copper market, obviously, lack of investment the last 10, 15 years. Demand is expected to outstrip supply for the next decade and beyond. So very similar. The only difference is that the tin market is very small, only 400,000 tons per year. There's like 10 investable producing tin companies out there. We joined the International Tin Association. We were the 10th, 10th company on the Explorer Developer space. So if you take anything from this interview, you know that we're at least in the top 10.
Very auspicious.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So small market, but the price hit an all-time high last year, came back after COVID, and now is kind of resuming its trajectory.
So where does your project fit into the global supply side?
So we picked up these projects in Tasmania, which is a tin producing state of Australia. One of the biggest mines in the world is Renison mine. It's Renison, which is owned by Metals X, out of Tasmania. We have two properties. One is a past producing tin and tungsten district. The other was advanced until the 80s. Has a historical resource on it, and that's our focus, is this Great Pyramid. Has a smaller resource on it, or a historical resource, but from surface down to 40 meters. We just did 5,000 meters of drilling on it, and are in the process of updating our resource, which we'll do in the next 2-3 months. That should put us in the game. You know, our grade is good, our size is small, so it's really a function of just drilling more and getting that resource up.
So you've drilled it and you've received results?
We received results, we put them all out,
Okay.
and now we're updating the resource.
Right.
So,
Okay.
We'll continue to drill it, but we just want to get kind of on the market board here with updating the resource here over the next couple months.
What's the news flow? Other than the resource, more drilling?
Yeah, so we'll update the resource. We're hoping to do another $1 million worth of drilling, another maybe 4,000 or 5,000 meters to keep growing it. It's open in all directions, so we can keep doing that. As a small company, we got to do it in stages.
Yeah.
As we get some results. So news flow you asked about. Next 3 months we'll update the resource. We're also working on our second project, which is 20 minutes up the road. It's called Aberfoyle Past Producing District. It produced for 35 years, and tin and tungsten. And so when they were producing, they basically had 1 year vision ahead of them, chasing these high grade veins. And for us, we wanted to do some modern, techniques on it. So we did some mapping and sampling, and in that process, of mapping and sampling for tin and tungsten, we found lithium. So this was this is kind of a outlier for us. We weren't trying to get into the lithium game. Everybody and their dog's trying to get into the lithium game, but we couldn't deny the fact it was 4 times higher any grades that they've ever seen in Tasmania. We sampled just over a 1 square kilometer of a 100 square kilometer property. So right now in the process of blanketing the entire property and see if we have a district scale discovery there.
Wow. Okay, so as we finish up, just brag about the group you're a part of and your team, your exploration team. Let's hear how great you are.
Yeah. I mean, Discover Group obviously is a model in the industry, and we're so happy that we were included here. I'm with the Inventa Capital Group, which is headed by Craig Perry and Mike Connert.
Yep, great guys.
Both guys have had quite a bit of success in the industry, taking small companies and growing them. In the case of Craig, he's grown 3 companies now into billion-plus companies, and a few $300-400 million companies. So experience with that. So we're part of that group. It's kind of an incubating group. And so we're just looking for our path to get there, and what's been challenging markets, but we're seeing some tailwind in the for us in the tin space right now. Prices starting to come back. There's been some political decisions that we've seen from Indonesia and Myanmar that I think will affect the tin price, and it should be an interesting year for us.
Can you talk about those 2 things? I know we don't have a lot of time, but those 2 things I think are critical in terms of Indonesia and Myanmar.
So, very long story short, tin price hit an all-time high of 51,000 a ton in March, and then collapsed. China, which is a net importer, started, their factories weren't at full production, so they flooded the market. But then one mine of 12% out of Peru shut down, and it doubled in 2 months. Wow. So it's rebounded. We are now looking at a scenario where Indonesia is looking to nationalize their processing, so they're curbing exports. That's 25% of world production. Plus, Myanmar has already announced that in August they are going to shut down production in their major tin district, and that's an additional 10%. So that's 35%. Wow. So we saw a double after one mine went off for 2 months. We potentially have 35% of the market coming off by the end of this year.
It's going to be a hot summer.
I hope so.
Wow, and so that's happening right now.
Well, Indonesia should be at the end of this month, and then Myanmar in August.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for participating. Thanks for giving us an update on TinOne, and we wish you great success.
Thanks so much. Cheers.